Welcome back to the Light Up Your Metabolism podcast. Today I have an amazing guest to talk all about something that actually is near and dear to my heart because I have had horrible experiences with mainstream doctors. And my guest today is going to talk about, and she's an insider, she's going to talk about medical gaslighting. So as a public speaker, Dr. Efrat Lamondre, as everyone calls her, Dr. E, is a best-selling author with over 5 million followers on various platforms. Dr. E is a medical disruptor, disrupting and reshaping healthcare. She advocates against medical gaslighting and empowers patients to recognize that their symptoms are not in their head. Dr. E has also founded several businesses in the healthcare space, including EG Healthcare for primary care, the New Method for functional medicine, Hawk Scribes for medical scribing, and EG Prep Education for nurse practitioners. She's a busy lady. Passionate about promoting longevity, Dr. E inspires individuals to realize that they can achieve peak performance at any age. She is also a fervent advocate for NPs of amplifying their voice in the healthcare arenas. You can follow her on socials, following her name, Dr. Efrat Lamondre, and she's on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. We have put all her information in the show notes, and I'm really excited to bring you this interview because, as I said, this is something that has affected me personally, but it's something that I also see affecting so many of my clients. My cousin, for example, is pregnant and she's talking to me about how she's going to advocate for herself when it comes to these doctor's appointments that she's going to. And she was telling me how she was made to feel bad because of certain things and certain lab numbers. And it can be a real challenge to go into these offices and feel that you're not going to be heard. But I really loved what we talked about on the interview, and I think it's going to give you guys a real mindset shift and a new way to think about how we look at our general practitioners, and also like what they're good at and what they don't specialize in. So we are not setting ourselves up with expectations that are not going to be met. And there's a lot of other really great tips in here about navigating these kind of systems and different conversations. And so I really hope that you get a lot out of this episode. And thank you, Dr. E, for coming on the podcast. So without any further ado, let's dive into the interview. Dr. E, thanks for being here on the Light Up Your Metabolism podcast. So excited to talk to you today.
I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. So I know you talk a lot about medical gaslighting, and I think that is a really important topic that I haven't talked much about on my podcast. I mean, I've certainly alluded to it because I've been a victim of it myself. When I had PCOS, I told the doctor, I think I have PCOS. I can't lose weight no matter what I do. What can I do to help? What can I do to fix this? And he goes, well, you do have PCOS. You have to take the pill, you have to lose weight, and there's no cure. So that was I will never forget those 4 sentences. Maybe I say them out of order, but I will not forget those because that was my experience. And I know that's the experience of so many people. But your labs are normal. It must be in your head. I have hypoglycemics all the time, and they are feeling symptoms of hypoglycemia, and they do a finger prick, and it's like, it's already come up or whatever. And it's like, oh, it must not be that. My A1C is normal. So I'll let you take it away and kind of dive into this lovely topic.
Yeah. So Danielle, first of all, I could talk a lot about this. So whenever you want to, just like mid-sentence, interrupt me.
You got it. Okay. I'm a monologuer as well. That's why I do well on a podcast.
But also, like, if you just feel free to like interrupt me. If you're waiting for me to catch my breath, I might not.
I'm from New York too. I know the style.
You know the style. Okay,
yeah,
great.
For sure.
So there's 2 parts of the medical gaslighting, and this is the part that sometimes agitates patients. So I just want to say this: it takes 2 to gaslight. Okay, so there's the provider part and there's the patient part. Let's leave the patient part as a teaser for after. Let's start with a more obvious one, which is the provider. So who am I? I'm a nurse practitioner with one of the largest privately owned conventional medicine primary care practices. So I practice conventional medicine. Mm-hmm. And through my wife's journey, I also got trained in functional medicine and integrative medicine. And so I call myself a recovering medical gaslighter. So it's important for you to know that I come from both worlds. I'm not coming from the outside, I'm coming from the inside. And what you learn on the inside, this is the provider part. For years, I was gaslighting people, but I did not know I was gaslighting. So this is really important. With the exceptions of a few, I don't know if we can curse, with the exceptions of a few assholes,
Mm-hmm.
generally speaking, 95% of the time that you're getting gaslit is not out of malice.
Mm.
It is out of indoctrination. So you go to school and MD, NP, DO, PA, we all study the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
We study how to find a disease, how to treat a disease. We study how to ask questions in the exam room, what's relevant, what's not relevant. We are taught evidence-based medicine. We are taught a lot of really good, powerful tools that are amazing for certain illnesses.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't want to be without them. Right? I don't want to treat my pneumonia with sage. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want, right? So I don't, so maybe somebody out there does that, but I do want antibiotics. So it is a great and powerful tool. The problem is in school is that we're taught it's the only tool. So if you come in and say, I have PCOS, let's just go before we get to PCOS. If I have fatigue, great, amazing. Oh my God, let's do your CBC. That's to check anemia. Let's check your thyroid. Let's see if there's a medical reason for why you're tired. Everything comes back normal. I have to conclude based on all my years of studies that you're fine. And I don't do that to gaslight you. I do that because that is the only conclusion based on what I learned in school. I am in search for a pathology. You don't have a pathology. Therefore, you are fine. Right? But there's no malice there. It's not like well, so since there's no more tools, you have to be like, okay, maybe you're not sleeping enough, or maybe, right? So you kind of put it back on the patient because all my tools failed. So this is the problem for conventional medicine providers, is that they don't recognize that their tool is only one tool.
Mm-hmm.
A better version would be, hey, Danielle, I don't see any medical reason. I don't see any pathology for your fatigue, but I really believe you that you're so tired.
Mm-hmm.
But my tools are so limited. Here's a list of providers who are a little bit out of the box thinkers who might do different testing that I'm not familiar with. Don't know what they are. I kind of heard of adrenal fatigue, not sure. So go there. So that would be a better experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I like when I speak to providers, I don't say you have to learn functional medicine, you have to go get certified. Just recognize that it exists. And when you run out of tools, don't tell the patient that they're wrong or fine. Just say, I've run out, and move there. So that's the part that needs to happen. Let me pause there, take a breath,
Yeah.
see how that's
I
landing.
yeah, I like the idea of the acknowledgement of the fact that I don't, yeah, like you said, conventional medicine practitioners are taught that this is the only toolbox.
Right.
Like this is the only toolbox. And then a lot of this came from like Rockefeller and there's a something report. I forget what it's called. I'll look it up, but it's the Flexner Report. And it talks about how like anything that's alternative is, they sort of poo-pooed it and said it was quackery. And so they were trying to get Rockefeller's curriculum and the pharmaceuticals, things that were heavily made from petroleum. So this Flexner Report is really significant in why mainstream medicine is the way it is today. And so I love that you are working from the inside to say, like, because a lot of practitioners got into this because they want to help people. So I don't think you got into like, hey, I want to be a doctor because I want to be an asshole. You get into it because you want to help people. And then your toolbox is so small and you're like, this is the only toolbox. And so, like you said, it makes the conclusion that many practitioners come to is that, well, you must be fine. You must not have this problem. It must be in your head. We'll give you a psych referral.
Right. And so what patients should do is recognize this indoctrination. And patients, if this happened to patients, and I still have to get where the patients are part of this, but if this happened to patients in any other industry, they wouldn't accept it. So scenario, I have a leaky toilet and I can actively see that it's leaking.
Mm-hmm.
And then I call my trusty carpenter. My carpenter comes with this toolbox and he tries everything, nails, screws, hammer, nothing happens. And he turns to me and says, "There's nothing wrong with your toilet bowl." I would be like, "Okay, my dude, amazing. Thanks for coming on a Sunday. Finish up your coffee. Let me pay you your
Yeah.
fee for coming in." And then I would call the right person. But
Yeah.
I would not question myself. I wouldn't say, "Well, is the toilet not really leaking?" I wouldn't say that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in the exam room, we start second guessing ourselves. So the first part of this is I want to say is recognize your PCP, your neurologist, your endocrinologist for their tools. A carpenter, and you're going to need that carpenter to fix your floor. You're going to need your PCP to order some labs and do the mammo. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to need your endocrinologist maybe to give you your thyroid meds, whatever it is. But that's it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Don't come them expecting more, and don't ask them for more, and just know their limitations and use them appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
But don't swear it off either, because there's going to be a time where you need every one of those. And so part of that is building your own team. So this reframing of what is experienced in medical gaslighting is really important, because that experience is so disempowering. We go home and we question, maybe I am crazy, or maybe this guy's really an asshole, or I need a new PCP. So then we go to 7 PCPs. Now we're becoming that crazy patient with like the 400 pieces of paper. But it doesn't matter how many carpenters you call to fix your toilet. It's never happening.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to kind of know what to expect from them.
Yes.
Um, the other part of this, of the patient, and I'm not saying this to blame patients at all, huge patient advocate, is that you already know. You have skill sets that you use all day long, everywhere else, but you have been indoctrinated also. You have been indoctrinated that the minute you walk in the exam room, your skills don't count. So you're a CEO, you're a mom of 3, you're packing lunches, you're doing meetings, you're hiring people, you're firing people, you're making decisions, you're gathering data, you're team building. You have all these skills, your leadership skills, your executive skills. And you walk in and all of it goes out the window. And this comes from indoctrination. This comes from years of being a good patient. This comes from
Mm-hmm.
years of like, right, there's this subtle cues that we get, like don't ask too many questions, don't be too assertive. And so we have come to adopt that doctor knows best,
Mm-hmm.
and they do know on certain topics. And we have accepted this ritual.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really important that we take ownership of that, because as we all know, we are evolved. We've all been through enough therapy to know that we can't make other people change.
That's right.
All we could do is change ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what would it look like if, as a patient, I walked into that room the way I walk into a boardroom, the way I walk into a PTA,
Mm-hmm.
the way I walk into whatever your world is? When you walk in fully confident, you may not know exactly what's going on, but you know how to like figure stuff out.
Yeah.
So what would it look like now? This is not about talking louder. This is not about becoming confrontational. This is about using like your skill set and coming prepared, and also just being like, asking certain questions. I can get into more details, but
Mm-hmm.
there is a part of the indoctrination on ourselves that we've accepted it.
Yes, I think that we all go into a big fawn response. So it's like a nervous system
Mm,
response that we fawn at the sight of these doctors because we are indoctrinated that they know best. And then maybe our history with them proves that they're not open to questions, that they will maybe name call or say something like, oh, don't confuse your Google search with my
yeah,
degree. And, like all those things that we see on these memes. And so I think that we are automatically in this place of like, this person has power. I need this person to order this lab for me, or I'm very afraid because I don't know what's going on in my own body. And so that's why I feel like people are so much more educated now because of social media. That's where I started
absolutely.
learning about all this stuff. And I became a practitioner myself. And I've learned a ton all to heal my own health. And I had to get like another degree. I had to go back to school to learn how to heal my body. So it's definitely disheartening when it's like, okay, all my insurance covers is these couple of practitioners and they don't know anything. So then I have to spend my own money doing it anyway. So what
Well,
do
it's
you
not that
say to
they don't know
people like that?
anything.
Well, they don't know how to help this condition, right? So maybe like a chronic issue and
Yeah.
their toolbox. I'm sorry, and I don't mean to be.
It's
This is where
okay.
I can get a little heated with my own story. And no, like I said, like you said, I don't really want essential oils if I,
Yeah.
have a
And so even
hernia
in your
rupture.
case, the
Yeah,
PCOS, right?
yeah,
PCOS, first of all, his delivery asinine. So we're not going to in any way, shape, or form
yeah.
condone that delivery. He's an idiot.
Hmm.
But what he offered you is all that he knows.
Hmm.
Right. And so and then there's a lack of awareness. But you're right. So I would say this, look, if there's red flags, if there's name calling, if there's, disrespect,
Hmm.
the way you experienced it, that's just not that's just not a nice human. Forget
Yeah,
about provider. That's just not a nice human. I don't even want to have like coffee with you.
yeah,
So if you're walking into a room with the person you really wouldn't want to break bed with, unless it's like a surgeon and you're like, who cares? I just need my knee fixed. I'm never going to see you again. He's a top surgeon. That's great. But
yeah.
like if you're having and you really can't vibe with this person, just go on vibes. That's first, because everyone went to the
Yeah.
same school. We all kind of have the same learnings. Just go on the vibe. So let's just assume the vibe is okay and assume that you're in the room with a decent human.
Mm.
I think as patients, we first need to know, we need to know who we are. We need to come and present what we need to present. And we might want to take some time in learning like how doctors hear stories. So using like we know how to present a PowerPoint. We know how to present to our, executive leadership. When you present a story to the doctor, they're interested in particular timelines. When did it start? What makes it better? What makes it worse? So use that format.
Hmm.
Come in there prepared. Bring all your variables and when I eat tomatoes it hurts. When bring whatever you can. But then and if they listen, great. But if they don't, that's also okay.
Hmm.
They can't be the ones to solve this. But that's when we come into team building, right? When you plan a wedding, you have a florist, a photographer, a DJ. You have a lot of people to get a wedding together. You don't have
Hmm.
one person doing it, right? And you're usually the one coordinating all the people. And if you have a party planner, then that person's coordinating because that would be a patient advocate. So you use the same thing here. Use your primary care for your annual screenings. You use your GYN for your pap smears. But then, either you get a functional medicine provider or if you can't afford one, there's so much information out there these days, a lot of books out there, so much on social media. You get an acupuncturist. You get different people for different things. And that is how you get to health. To
Hmm.
your point about insurance only covers one tool.
Hmm.
That's it.
Yep.
And so we also can't ask the insurance to become more flexible. I mean, in an ideal world, we could, but we could either spend time being frustrated with what is or understand when we can use it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think that knowing the limitations of Western medicine and conventional medicine is a really important first step. I am, if I have an emergency and I get hurt, I'm not gonna like flip open these books I have back here, right?
Right.
I'm in, emergency room. Like they excel in acute issues. But when anything, as far as I'm concerned, when certain things become chronic, that's when Western medicine is not as helpful in getting to the root. They're not looking, like you said, you are trained to look for the presence of a disease and then provide usually prescriptions to reduce the symptoms of that disease. Would you
Some
say?
sort of intervention. Yeah.
So, yeah.
So to your point, so let's talk about where it starts. So if illness and wellness are on a spectrum. For those of you who are listening and not watching, you have on the one side, you have wellness. I never felt better. I feel amazing. And on the other side of illness, I'm diagnosed. I need some medication. It takes time to go from wellness to illness, sometimes years. Right? I'm not talking about a trauma that just got into a motor vehicle. And I'm also not talking about I got a cold overnight. I'm talking
Mhm.
about these chronic, it takes time. It takes time. And we have a kind of understanding that it will take time, for example, to become diabetic, right? We eat a lot of sugar. It doesn't happen overnight. Once you are in the stand of illness, we have that diagnosis, we have the diabetes. That is where conventional medicine shines. That is where you can get your insulin and your medications, and it is great. But on your way to illness, conventional medicine has no tools. So let me give an example back to diabetes, because most of us are familiar with the term of pre-diabetes. So diabetes, for those who don't know, is diagnosed by a certain test called an A1C. An A1C of 6.4 and higher is diabetes. So once you hit 6.4, a whole algorithm comes up of all these medications we can give you. But when you're 5.7, 5.8, 5.9 on your way to 6.4, the most you will get in the medical office is, hey, watch your carbs. There are no tools. There's no tools. And so if you're looking for more while you're here, you have to go somewhere else, a nutritionist, listen to your podcast about CGMs, right? Like you have to go somewhere else. Now, if you keep going asking for more here, you're in the wrong, you're just going to get frustrated. Mm-hmm. Now, this is an obvious one. Let's go for autoimmunity, which is less obvious. Mm-hmm. Autoimmunity takes time to diagnose, very hard to diagnose. And sometimes, by the time it shows up in your blood work, you will have felt like shit for at least a decade. Mm-hmm. Now, once it shows up in your blood work, we know where to send you. We send you to rheumatology. Rheumatology will offer you a whole bunch of drugs. Take it, don't take it, that's a different story. Mm-hmm. But on the way, until your serum markers, your blood markers convert, is the aches and the pains and the brain fog and the fatigue. And you keep going and you get blood work and you're fine. You get blood work and you're fine. You blood work and you're fine. This is the time conventional medicine has nothing for you. It doesn't matter how upset you get. It doesn't matter if you feel gaslit. It doesn't matter if you go to 16 PCPs. Nothing will help you here.
And a specialist, I would like to point out, also cannot help you at this stage.
Correct.
They can do tests. They can always do lots of testing, but they can't help you. And thank you for saying this and putting it in this perspective, because I have so many people with hypoglycemia issues, and there is not one prescription for any hypoglycemia issue at all. There's no procedures that you can do that I am aware of unless you have an insulinoma. And I've seen 2 of those in my career, and I've worked with thousands of people who have hypoglycememia. So it's probably not an insulinoma, but certainly go ahead and rule that out with a scan. But people have hypoglycemia, and they're like, oh, I'm waiting to get in with this specialist. I'm waiting to get in with this person. I'm like, honey, I hate to tell you, like, I know I have something to sell, but I can help you. Like, I'm the person who can help you in this interim reverse that before you get to diabetes. Even if you are past diabetes, arguably you don't need the medication. Just start working together with me and we can reverse that right away. But if you're at a point where, your blood sugar is like 600, not coming down, I don't typically see people like this, and you do need a little bit of insulin so you don't go into a diabetic coma, then you're not going to get that from me.
No, you're 100% right about the specialist. I have people who will have, with Hashimoto's, right? You'll have the antibodies for a really long time before you need medication. It doesn't help you to go to endocrinologists. There's nothing that can be done until your TSH moves. And so during this time of pre-disease, this is the time of I don't feel good-itis. Mm-hmm. Your role as a patient is to go in, get tested, rule out disease. Great, I don't have cancer. Great, I don't have anemia. I don't have anything. They said I'm fine. That's great, because guess what? I don't want to be on that side of the spectrum. Mm-hmm. That's great. Thank you so much. I don't need your tools. Amazing. And that is when you go and find people like Danielle and other providers to help you with the I don't feel good-itis. The other part of the I don't feel good-itis, interestingly, is if in the land of illness, we look at images and labs. So your cholesterol is high, I give you medicine, cholesterol goes, I track it. You have a tumor, I remove the tumor, do a scan, I see it's gone. So we have these objective measurements to see if our interventions have worked. But what happens in the land of I don't feel good-itis? I can't track your labs are fine. How do I track, if I tell you to go gluten-free, how do I track if it helped? And the answer is, I just listen to you, right? So this is the land where we use your symptoms to not only believe you and validate your experience, but to determine whether or not an intervention worked. So I have brain fog, I have stomach ache, I have skin issues, I take you off of gluten, the skin issues got better, the brain fog got better, guess what? You're gluten sensitive. There's no test for it, you are the test for it, it's an N of 1. But you know what? Maybe my stomach didn't get better. Okay, that doesn't mean that gluten didn't help. It just means I need to keep going. And so, using your symptoms, this is another part of like being that patient and listening to yourself. Your symptoms in this land of pre-disease are so critical to track, listen to, and believe your own symptoms.
Mhm.
Just because your symptoms are not good enough to convince the other world because the labs are normal, they're still very, very valid. And you don't need that external validation to believe them.
Yeah, I love that. Believe your own symptoms. They are happening. Track them. And that's, I mean, before I used CGMs with my clients, before they were like a thing, we only used symptom tracking
Yeah.
to be able to identify what areas of the body needed support, to be able to give interventions and change the diet and recommend certain things and supplements. And people, I mean, are reversing chronic conditions and feeling, I mean, hundreds of symptoms disappearing overnight, not overnight, over a couple of weeks in my programs, because the symptoms are your body speaking. And so they're like mainstream medicine. It's more if you can, if they're classifiable enough, if they show up on lab work, or if it's like something that I could give maybe a diagnostic code for insurance. So, but if it's just kind of like, oh, I have this little bit of like, I get constipated after I eat a lot of fat, they're like, well, don't eat fat. But you know, that's not the answer. The answer is like, hey, we have to thin your bile. There's foods we can eat, there's supplements we can give you to help with that, so you can digest the fat and then have it, you know, be absorbed into your system and you have a regular bowel movement.
Yeah.
So yeah, just
And
different.
yeah, absolutely correct. And so I think the most important part for our listeners is, again, outside of people who are actually rude,
Mm-hmm.
removing them from the equation, the experience of medical gaslighting can absolutely disappear the minute you understand the purpose of these people. They are
Mm-hmm.
there to determine whether you are sick or not. They are
Mm-hmm.
not there to determine whether you are well or whether your symptoms are real. They're just
Okay.
there to determine whether you're sick or
Sick
not.
or not? Okay.
Right. So
Yeah.
not sick, amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And now I need to deal with and now I need to go to the place of the not sick people who don't feel well. Okay. And so the minute you know what they're good for, the minute you understand that their limitations have nothing to do with your validated experience, they are limited. And it's okay that they don't say it. You also don't need to change them or prove it to them.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. So that's really important. And then the other part is, do not lose who you are everywhere else in the exam room. Recognize that you have been trained as well. Again, it doesn't mean to be confrontational, but if you feel what you feel and you've tracked what you've tracked and you know what you know, and my second book is called When You Know, You Know. And and they say you're fine, amazing. Walk away. They didn't gaslight you. They can't gaslight you. It takes two people to gaslight. They can't gaslight you. They're wrong. They're just wrong.
Mm-hmm.
They're not gaslighting you. They're just wrong. Just walk away.
Mm-hmm.
And so at least if we can remove that the horrible feeling of like, I can't believe that person said that. Believe it. That's exactly what they're designed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then the experience could be a little less traumatic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You don't have to make it mean something. Like, you don't have to doubt your own feelings. You can just be like, well, that person couldn't help me. And so you find someone who can.
Yeah. If this is what I say, if this was your kid, you know what to do, right? So like your kid tells you second grade teacher is really harassing him or something's happening in second
Yeah.
grade. You go to the principal and you're like, listen, this is what's happening. And the principal's like, no, it's not. I know this teacher forever. And you're like, I don't know what to tell you, my dude. My kid comes home every day and he doesn't want to go back to school. The principal can stand all day telling you it's not real. You're just going to go to the superintendent. You're going to keep going, or you're going to pull the kid out of school. You will never once doubt
Doubt the
your
kid.
kid, and you will never stop,
Mm-hmm.
because who you are is someone who stands for your kid, right? Or your pet or your loved one. But then when it comes to you, you're like, oh, maybe. So just if you can't do it for yourself, because that indoctrination is deep, pretend you're advocating for your child.
Yeah. Yeah. I see it keep going back to the fawn response. It's like, oh, they said this, so I must not have this problem. It's like, no, you do know, like,
I,
you do know what's going on with you. You
I,
are the biggest expert on your own body.
absolutely. I've had a
Yeah.
patient, this patient, like really, I don't see patients one-on-one anymore and
Mm-hmm.
integrative, only in my primary care practice. But This woman came to me from Lebanon.
Mm-hmm.
She's been all over, and her symptoms were like um, fatigue, shortness of breath, like just memory issues. And so when they did the PHQ-9, which is the screening for depression, she came up as depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And so they offered her antidepressants. She's like, but I'm not depressed. But she fit all the criteria in the PHQ-9, which, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yes, she's fatigued. Yes, like all these things. And so they convinced her. She's like, so I started taking the meds. I know I'm not depressed, but the screening says I'm depressed. So like they literally convinced the woman that she's depressed, and she's like, I'm really not. And of course, it didn't help her, and of course, it ended up being mold. But um, but it's to the point where we can really convince someone that they're crazy. Like literally, you have a mental health issue, you have anxiety or
Yes.
depression, and take these meds, and you second guess yourself. You would think 400 times before you gave a kid medication. You would move heaven and earth. I'm not. Eventually, you might,
Mm-hmm.
but you wouldn't be convinced that easily.
I love what you're saying. I see a theme here of this, like, losing ourselves and not advocating for ourselves because we don't think we can. And like you said, it's like we see the white coat and everything goes out of our head. We're like, I don't know anything. I don't, they're the expert. No, like, yeah,
Yeah.
you, we are the experts on our own bodies. And I do have more and more people coming to me. The doctor sent me home with this prescription, but I haven't taken it yet. They sent me home with this. They told me to take this, but I'm not taking it. Like, I'm doing more research. And it's like, good, you have it there if you need it, if you decide that that's the best route for you or the route you want to choose. But I love that it's like, let me see if there's something else I can do. I love that energy. And I like, coming to me, asking other
Yes.
people. It's like, hey, what do you think about this?
Now, for any provider who might be listening, there are times when the patients are dead ass wrong. Okay, I'll give you an example. But if you're a good provider, you could be like, okay, listen, I don't think this is the right way to go, but let's go with it. I mean, unless it's like something crazy, just go. Like what do you have to lose? Like put your ego on the side. So like, I had a patient. Some people have really wrong views on antibiotics.
Mm-hmm.
They feel like, oh, my body doesn't work with this antibiotic. That's a sentence they hear all the time. That's not how antibiotics work. Antibiotics work for specific bacteria. So I just had this came up in my mind. Because I want to make sure that we're balanced in what we're talking about, but we still can manage it even if we know that this is not the right way to go. So her infection showed very particular bacteria, and they give you a list of antibiotics. It's called a culture and sensitivity.
Mm-hmm.
And so you try to give the one, as long as it's sensitive to the bacteria, that's going to be the least side effect. So
Mm-hmm.
I chose antibiotic A. She called the office very upset. She's like, I know my body. I'm bringing this up because you said patient. I know my body, and this won't work. And so I said, listen, it's not about your body. It's really about this. And she's like, this antibiotic B is what I want, which is also sensitive, so it wouldn't be wrong. But antibiotic B has significant side effects, including tendon rupture. Yeah. And so I sat with the patient. I was like, I just want to let you know, both of these will be effective for the bacteria that you have. This one has a much higher risk profile. And she's like, I know my body. This is what I want. So I'm like, okay. Like I can't argue with I know my body. And I was like, as long as you understand the risks, that's called shared decision making. As
Mm-hmm.
long as you understand the risks, and I'm going to write down the understand the risk, and you feel empowered to do this, God bless, because I'm also not going to gatekeep. I'm going to give you as much information as possible. So sometimes on both sides, like sometimes like your doctor was overwhelmed, sometimes the patients come in and they are a little bit misguided. And
Mm-hmm.
as long as they're not harming themselves, and you can come up with shared decision making, and you can
Mm-hmm.
document and say, let's come back to it if. I think it's a better way. I want to make sure that sometimes the rhetoric is also like doctors are always wrong, patients are always right. Sometimes they're dead ass wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So what about with people who lost my train of thought? You were talking about, oh, okay, with consent. So when it comes to medications, uh, my doctor, when I got that PCOS diagnosis, he said, you have to take the pill. And I said,
No.
I don't do well on the pill. And he goes, what happens to you? Like this guy, I mean, he was
This
the
guy isn't.
worst. He
He's
was
got
the
to go.
worst. So he's like, well, what happened to you when you took the pill? I was like, well, I've taken several different types of pills and I had horrible responses to all of them. I got really bad acne. I gained a ton of weight. My boobs got so big and were so painful that I would wake up in the middle of the night. I got like yeast
Mood issues.
infections. I threw up and I got morning sickness. And then meanwhile, you see all the pills that I was on, like Yaz and Yasmin, I saw those on commercials, 10 years after I took them. Like, if you took this, you might be entitled to blah, blah, blah. So this guy literally he
No.
forced me to take a prescription of the pill out of the office, which I proceeded to rip up when I got in my car. But he forced that on me. That doesn't feel like informed consent. Like, birth control is a class 1 carcinogen, if I'm not mistaken.
It's
So,
just been classified. Yeah.
like,
Listen, he is
this
not a good
guy's
provider.
another level. Okay.
He's another, because one of the things, and also there's generation, like, I don't know how long ago, but like 10 years ago,
10 years ago.
this, I don't know, how long ago was this?
11 years ago.
Okay. 10 years ago, this conversation didn't exist. 10 years ago,
It was a different
let's call it
landscape.
real. It was primarily white men,
He was.
and this is just how they ran every industry, every business, right? The idea that we women, marginalized people, have a voice and have a thought. I mean, so like 10 years ago was also a different time. I
Okay.
think now absolutely nobody would accept that level of disrespect. And if you're out here listening and someone's still at that level,
Mm-hmm.
you got to run. Okay. So we have to give some space for that. Not that that was right, but like 10 years ago, like this conversation you and I would not even have this conversation. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think I'd be able, I mean, I opened my practice about 10 years ago, and just looking the way I look was already an uphill battle. Now it's like, who cares? Right. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot has changed in these 10 years. But where we are at now, if you are a good provider, is something called shared decision making. Shared decision making. So I can tell my patients, and again, I deal mostly in primary care. So and I was like, look, this is what I think is happening to your blood pressure. And I was like, well, I don't really want to take medication. And I'm like, and I totally respect that. So we have a few options, depending on how bad it is, right? We have a few options. You can go home for like 3 months and try, this is what you could try, and then we can come back. Or sometimes I'll say, listen, grab a monitor at home, a blood pressure monitor for like $50. Do it for like a week. Come back with the numbers. Let's look at them together and let's decide together. And then I have a whole risk reward conversation. Like, yes, this medication has side effect, but the side effect of the blood pressure is death. So like and we put it on a scale of like risk reward. And I do that with everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then ultimately I have the patient decide. If they decide something that I don't necessarily agree with, I will just document that they're aware and they made this, because you're an adult. I
Mm-hmm.
can't tell you what to do. I don't even tell people to stop smoking. You know smoking's bad. It's written on the damn box. I'm not going to, like, if you're ready to stop smoking and you want my help, I can help you. But imagine if every day you came out like, oh, you should stop smoking. They wouldn't even want to come anymore. Right? So just provider to provider, just treat people as adults, not kids, but shared decision making. It's a better way to practice.
Mm-hmm.
Patients are more in tune to you. They want to hear, and they're willing to listen to you. If you're just like, no, you have to take this. And that's how I feel also about vaccines. Like, let's have conversations. That's how I feel about everything.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have conversations about risk reward. Let's have conversations about what works for you. It's conversations about if you're willing to deal with the consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And then do you.
Yeah, I think what I hear from a lot of people is that they feel like if my doctor tells me to do something, I have to do it. I think that we lose the fact that we
You lose it.
are autonomous adults and
Yeah.
we don't have to
You don't
we
have
can
to.
go against medical advice. And so you could say, you can document it in my chart. I'm not going to take that. I'm going to do something else.
100%.
And I understand that it takes a certain like amount of confidence. And I know a lot of personality types who are the ones who may be in that fawning state, or kind of like the peacekeeping people pleaser, like, I don't want to rock the boat and I'm going to get in trouble. Like this, a lot of childhood trauma stuff is showing up here. Like, how do we show up to authority? And so it's like, but I think that people don't know that they have the option to say no. They
Well,
like,
they
I
don't
don't know.
necessarily have to say no. That's the other thing, right? Like
Okay.
if you're not someone who's comfortable with confrontation and you don't
Hmm.
want to say no and you don't want to go back and forth, you
Hmm.
could just say, okay, thanks.
Hmm.
Take
Yeah.
the prescription.
Take the prescription, rip it up in your car. Or yeah,
You have to
don't fill it.
physically go to the pharmacy eventually and pick it
Yeah.
up or not, right?
The
So
doctor's not spoon feeding it to you
yes,
every morning.
yes.
So yeah.
Yes, that's exactly right. So you don't, this is
Mhm.
goes back to like, you don't have to be like, if you go to the PTA and they're talking nonsense and you don't want to be part of the bake sale, right? You just don't go to the bake sale. Like we don't
Mhm.
have to go to the PTA and be like, this bake sale is terrible. And why are you selling gluten? I'm like, no, that's just not my
Yeah, write
exam.
down that I'm not going to be at the bake sale. We don't have to.
We don't
We
have to
don't
do
have to
that.
do that.
Right.
Yeah.
You could just, that's the empowered part is now I understand your limitations. I understand that you have to write this prescription because otherwise you're going to get in trouble with your boards. I
Hmm.
get that. Amazing. I'm not going to try to change you.
Hmm.
I'm not
Or
going to
the
try to change
entire system that
or
is
the
forcing
entire
you to do
system
this.
or get
Yeah.
mad
Hmm. But
and
I'm going
say
to do what
thank
works for me.
you. I heard one version
Hmm.
and you go like how many times you want to get construction done in your house. You have one guy come from the kitchen. He says like 100,000. I was like, thank you so much. Have a nice day. Goodbye.
Hmm.
And the next guy says like 5,000. Like, oh, that's a little too cheap. And maybe you find someone who does that 20. So like this idea of going to for several opinions and
Hmm.
then choosing the one that resonates with you is fine. And we don't have to tell the 100,000 like, are you crazy? Be like, thanks. That's an interesting proposal, and just move on with your day. Right. So like start treating your providers the same way you would treat the electricians that are coming to give you proposals.
Yeah.
Um, you don't have to re-educate and be like, I don't like how you do proposals. Great. And some people absolutely love when their doctors tell them what to do.
Hmm.
And so there's a lid for every pot. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Um, so you don't need to have that experience. Just go home, figure it out. And in fact, better, go home, process,
Hmm.
research the med, come back with more questions.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
generally speaking, I would say like kind of in the world of primary care, if you're looking for that kind of interaction, you're more likely going to find it with a nurse practitioner.
Hmm.
I'm a nurse practitioner, not to disparage my MD colleagues, they're amazing, but primary care is a lot of, I hug every one of my patients.
Hmm.
There's a lot of getting to know. There's a lot of like, I hear you. There's a lot of tissues.
Hmm.
There's a lot of like, what's going on in your world? What's in your way? Don't say non-compliant patient. What's in your way of getting the meds, right? Like there's a lot of that. And coming from the nursing model, there tends to be more of that rhetoric kind of intrinsic in those kind of providers. So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
That's also, yeah, really helpful to know. So, is there anything that we haven't mentioned about like anything that you can teach people how to advocate for themselves without being dismissed or labeled as difficult? Like, is it that just, thank you, moving on? Is there anything else besides that comes to mind?
It's just really knowing that when you go into the system, you are
Mhm.
only there to rule out illness.
Okay.
If you don't find an illness, I actually want you to be happy. Go celebrate. Because that's the other part of the indoctrination. It's like, oh, they can't find anything. That means you keep going until someone validates you. So, no, I want you to celebrate the lack of diagnosis. End
Hmm.
of story. Go have champagne and then move on somewhere else.
Yeah. Got it. That's really helpful. So, one more thing I wanted to ask you about is when a doctor says like your labs are normal, they are often, if it's conventional medicine, they're going to be using the conventional ranges.
Hmm.
So, is that why, like, how do we navigate that, especially if you are aware of functional medicine, but are not sort of able to advocate as much for yourself, or you're not an expert.
Well, again, you're going to conventional medicine, you want them to read it conventionally because they're going to find disease. When functional
Okay.
medicine is looking at ranges, they're looking for optimization.
Okay.
Right? Let's go and not all ranges, right? Like everyone agrees like the hemoglobin should be a certain place, but I think we're talking
Mhm.
about like thyroid
Yep.
and certain type of vitamins. So thyroid, you, if conventional medicine is looking for above 4 or 5 in order to medicate.
Mhm.
Great, amazing. If they think I
Of
don't need
TSH
medication, yeah, of
only,
TSH. I'm
and they
sorry.
don't actually test any thyroid
They'll
hormones.
just say that. Now they're not wrong
Mhm.
that you do need it if you're over 5. Thank you so much. But if you're like, my grandma has thyroid, I'm feeling really sluggish. Now you have to take those labs that you just did a Quest and bring them to a functional medicine provider who will look at it and be like, you know what? You've been a 3.5 for the past year. let's put you on meds, because they're working with someone else. So again, you can't get your PCP, you can't convince your PCP to give you, to optimize you at 3.5. They think you're optimal because you don't have a disease. So you take those labs and you have someone else look at them, and just like you would anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's helpful, because I know a lot of people get bogged down in like in the numbers, but it makes sense to be like, okay, this is not a disease, but then, in my mind, that there's a lot of other things that we could do before jumping on interventions. But of course, if you really need something and you're like, I need this as like a crutch, that's like saying, oh, you sprained your ankle, you can't use crutches because that doesn't help heal the root cause. It's like, well, it's helpful while
Yeah.
this is happening. So no shame to anyone who's taking medication. But for me, my goal with my clients is to get off as many medications as possible. But, I'm sure you work with people on that, on the functional side.
Yeah, but you're talking about like sugar. But when it comes to like my age group, I encourage people to be on thyroid meds, and I encourage people to be on hormones in your 50s, because you're just sluggish. So like I've already been taking selenium and zinc, and but I'm
Mm-hmm.
53, and so I'm sluggish. So the other part that you're bringing up is like different tools also for different times in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and also if you've already tried everything, to your point, you've already optimized everything and it's still sluggish, great time for medication. Postmenopausal woman is never going to make estrogen
Yes.
the way she needs to. So we're going to need pharmaceuticals,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whereas the perimenopausal, or the woman who's trying to get pregnant, there's a lot of levers that we can move around hormones. So the tools also change as we age, depending on our goals. So again, like the guide that you had, like if you're with Danielle right now and now you're sure optimized and you're like feeling great, and I don't know, there's something else down the rat. I don't know, Danielle, if you're also do hormones, but now you suddenly are postmenopausal and you want hormones. So now you find a counterpart. So it's once again goes back to team building.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a lot of really great practitioners that I recommend out to for things like hormones. My friend Karen, or if someone's struggling a lot with sleep, like I have a whole network of really great practitioners, and as
Amazing.
many people do, like we can't do it all. You can't know everything, and so it does get a little siloed. But at least there's more talking and more overlap.
And that's the humility that we lack in conventional medicine, to be like, I don't have the answers, but here's a network of amazing people that I've collected over the time.
Yeah.
We do that for specialists. Like, here's your cardiologist, here's your nephrologist,
Yeah.
but not for alternative. And
Interesting.
so,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
if I could change one thing, honestly, it would just be to convince primary care providers to add to the referral list a whole bunch of, I hate the word alternative, but I'll say it for now, alternative providers.
Mm-hmm.
You could validate that patient and be like, I believe you, I just can't fix it. Here's where you go. Their
Mm-hmm.
entire trajectory changes.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that could ever happen?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay. Just checking.
Absolutely. It's funny. I just want to say one thing. My podcast is called The Medical Disruptor, and it's generally speaking, with few exceptions for exceptional humans like you, is generally speaking for people who are conventionally trained,
Mm-hmm.
who then come over to the dark side. So there is a whole army of us who NPs, PAs, MDs, DOs who have gone through, school have surgeons. People have spent decades in school just to hit a roadblock and realize that they can't do it, and then they come and study. So there is an army of providers around the country of people who are classically trained
They're
and then
waking
went
up.
for more.
Yeah.
Try to find them.
Wow. That's really good to hear, because it feels a little disheartening, but it's like, okay, some provider just spent years in school. They have a ton of debt. They need to work. So it's like they need to be in the system that is failing them because they've just trained so long. So I can understand why it could be this like a really hard pill to swallow, you know,
But
when you get
yeah,
into this world and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not really helping people in the way that I feel like I could be. And I don't think everyone has that thought. They're just like, this is how it is. But I'm glad to see that I think more and more practitioners are waking up to it, and potentially because they had their own issues.
that's
I don't know.
exactly
That's
it.
just my thought.
No, that's exactly it. They almost always. I have some, because if you go, it's a great resource if you're looking for providers in your area or on a particular topic,
Okay.
mold or whatever. Just
Yeah.
if you're looking for classically trained and then did more. But I have some that did it for curiosity, and I had some that did it like for the patient trajectory. But most of them, either they got very sick, like full crash burnout, top of their game, surgical like,
Yep.
Yale, Harvard, you name it. They either, or someone in their family hit a
Yeah,
wall.
you said your wife.
For me, it was my wife, but I've had, I've had people recover and their partners recover from like MS. I mean, just amazing, amazing, amazing stories. And then they realized that their training wasn't enough. And it's unfortunate, but it's great, because it's great to have people in this world that can kind of bring some of the credibility along with it. It's unfortunate, that we need that in a sense, but it's very, very helpful. And when you're really searching in the land of like, who do I go to? Where do I go? There's so many people on the internet. Sometimes that is a good place to start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you. This has been really helpful, and it's different than what I talk about a lot, but I feel like this was a much needed conversation, and I appreciate the balanced approach that you brought to it, and that expertise from the other side. And no, I don't think every doctor is horrible, even though I've had horrible experiences with
They should be
doctors.
ashamed of themselves.
Yeah. But it's people like you who make me have a little bit more hope in
Aw,
in the system. So thank you so much. I
thank
appreciate it.
you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And is there anything, you mentioned you have a second book, so you want to talk about your book, where people could find you?
Just my name, Efrat
Okay.
Lamondre, on
Mhm.
any platform. I don't sell anything. I just talk about stuff. Just come hang out.
All right. I love it. My mom was the one who sent me your TikToks. She's like,
That's
she's
right.
talking about a lot of the same stuff you talk about. I'm like, yeah,
Yay,
yeah,
mom.
yeah. My mom doesn't, you know, she hears stuff from me and she's like, that's weird. That doesn't relate to me. And so it doesn't affect her. And then it's like, oh, this person's also saying this weird stuff that Danielle talks about. And it's like, yeah, I'm
My,
not the
my,
only one saying this.
my wife asked me once, who
Love
even
you, Mom.
listens to your podcast? I'm like, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of people except for my wife. So don't, so don't worry. I get it.
I love it.
So,
Well, thanks so much for being here. And everyone go check out Dr. E's page. She's great to listen to, and you provide a lot of helpful information. And especially if you're a provider, if you're more classically trained and want to start changing some things up. I don't know if there's anyone like that listening, but you sound like a great person to talk to.
thanks so much. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
thank you.